All right, guys, we're going to go over the quadratic formula today. Now, this is a little graphic organizer to show you the setup, the formula, the parts, the things, the steps, the things you need to know in order to do that formula. Now, I'm just going to design this a little bit. You can personalize yours as you want. I'm going to go right here to my creative pen. So, the quadratic formula here is used when you have a quadratic equation that's in standard form. So it's going to create a parabola, and this formula works always. It will always give you an answer, whether you can factor, graph, okay, take the square root. So if you struggle with factoring or maybe reading the graph, analyzing the graph correctly, you can use the quadratic formula. The thing is, it must be, in order to use the quadratic formula, the equation must be in standard form. So I just kind of want to recap that real quick. I'll put a little use when in standard form. So our standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. This is important. In order to solve any equation, we need to have it equal to 0. Okay. And the formula allows me to take the parts in standard form and plug it in to get to a solution. So this first little symbol here, this plus or minus, this arrow is just pointing to whenever we have just the plus sign here. So when you're looking at the plus value, this is when it gives you the first solution doing addition. So the plus gives you the first solution. So because there's a plus and minus, that means there are going to be two solutions. So first we're going to do one with a plus sign in between these two variables, these two expressions. And then we're going to do one with a minus sign. Okay. And so down here, the minus gives you the second solution. Filling your graphic organizer for me with me gives you the second solution. Okay. All right, so the parts that we're going to use into our formula are the same parts that are in standard form. So, for example, and I'm just going to kind of highlight these parts. We're going to pay attention to our A, our B, and our C. Okay, so wherever there is a number or value for A that's in front of the x squared, we are going to plug that, that's here in the formula where it says 4AC. So we're going to, where the A is, I'm going to fix this real quick. We're going to substitute those values for A in that part of the formula. Where we have a B, notice we start off with a negative B, and then we have B squared, so to a power of 2. All right, and then we have 4 times AC. So our C is here underneath the radical. Excuse me. And the part that's important that might be new for us is, and I'm just going to go here, is this square root symbol. We have to make sure we're using the radical sign when we're using the quadratic formula. And we also need to make sure that we keep it like a fraction. This is a fraction showing division here, and divided by 2a. So 2 times a here. So how does this work down here? How do we use this? Well, what we do is we identify, the first thing we do, is we're going to identify or ID the parts in the quadratic equation. So you want to identify the parts, which is your A, your B, and your C. And we're talking about an A x squared plus bx plus c in that formula, in that form, okay? Then we're going to plug in, basically, plug in the A, the B, and C. Meaning we're going to plug it into the formula using parentheses. So I'm going to plug in A, B, and C using parentheses. Okay. Then we're just going to simplify. When we simplify, we're just going to simplify using order of operations. Now, our calculator can help us do that as long as we type everything, use parentheses when we plug it into the formula and plug it into the calculator. So using operations. And then the last thing we're going to do is we are going to solve the equation. Okay. So if we're going to use our examples on here to help you set up the parts into the quadratic formula and to simplify it by using your order of operations and to get to a solution. So if you look at example 1 over here, okay, first I got to check if it's in standard form. It is. And if you want, and I'm going to do this because I think it might help for some of y'all, we can, set up or show standard form. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Because now I can line up my parts. I can now see, hold up, I think I did, yeah, there it is. And now I can see that my A coefficient right here is the 3. And I can substitute A3, for A. So A is gonna equal 3 right there. Then I can line it up and I can see that my B coefficient, what's in front of X, that is our 4. Oops. Supposed to be in a pen, sorry. So B equals 4. And then our C, this term here, our constant in our standard form, is the value here. Don't forget your sign, because we have a -8, then that lets us know we're going to have a -8 here. So we're going to take these values for A, B, and C and plug them into the formula, which was, the first thing is we're doing a negative, let me change my font just a second, negative B. So negative parentheses, our B was 4, like that. Plus or minus B squared. So I'm doing my parentheses again. That'd be 4 squared. Minus 4 times A, so parentheses 3 times C. 4AC means 4 times A times C. So then -8 here. All of this is over the fraction 2A. So now I'm doing 2 times 3. So 3 is in the parentheses. So now, order of operations says that we are going to, let me extend my page just a second. We're going to do our exponent first, okay? So when I simplify this, and I think my font's good, I have a -4 plus or minus the square root, 4 squared is 16, minus, and then I'm going to do my multiplication. So the way I look at this is I say this -4, I'm thinking this is a -4 times 3 times a -8. So you just go -4 times 3 times a -8. That gives us positive 96, okay? So now, instead of saying minus, we knew this was a positive answer, so we're going to put plus 96. This is all over 2 times 3, which is 6. So we can do, now we'll do our addition right here. So I'm just going to simplify this. But I'm also going to show you how you can put all of this parentheses in the calculator and get to the same answer. So we have -4 plus or minus the square root. 16 plus 96 is going to give me 112 all over 6. Okay, so the plus or minus sign right here means we're going to have to do this once with addition. So here's negative 4 plus the square root of 112 over 6. And then we have to do one with subtraction. Negative 4 minus 112 all over 6. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we can type that in using our fraction bar in our calculator. So get your calculator, please. And we're going to go to alpha y equals to get our fraction boxes. And we're going to put negative 4 plus, then we have to put the radical symbol. To get to this radical symbol, this x squared right here is how I square a number. Right above it in blue is this radical sign. So we have to hit second and then x squared to get that square root sign, that radical sign. We're going to type in 112. Then we're going to arrow down and type in 6. And then we're going to hit enter. And so we get a decimal answer. So normally students use quadratic formula when they can't factor, because if it's not factorable, meaning getting a whole number factor, then we have a decimal. And this is how we can get to that decimal answer if we can't see it on the graph. Now we're going to round this answer to the nearest 10. That means one decimal place. So I look at that one decimal place, which is a 0. Then I look to the right of that, there's a 9. So this is going to round to 1.1. So our x equals 1.1, okay? Then I'm going to do the same thing with subtraction, because we have to do plus and minus. One with plus, addition, one with subtraction. Now, the calculator, instead of typing this all out again, I can go up here, highlight the plus right there, the operation that I did, hit enter, and then arrow, then arrow to the right, and then up, like that, and change, instead of typing it all over, I can change that plus to a minus sign, and hit enter. So our second solution is negative 2.4. I'm not going to round the 4 up because there's a 3 next to it. It has to be a 5 or more to get round up. So our other solution is a negative 2.4. Okay, now the calculator, and we'll do it on example 2. I can, as long as I can get it plugged in, which is this section right here, as long as, let me fix that. As long as I can get to the substitution, the plugging in, the calculator will do everything else for you. You don't have to worry about the order of operations as long as you type it in using parentheses correctly. So on example 2, right off the bat, this is not in standard form. So the first thing I need to do is put this in standard form. It has to equal to 0, so I'm going to minus 20. So the new equation really would be 2x squared plus 5x minus 20 equals 0. Now it's in standard form. So from here, I'm going to pull out my values for a, b, and c. My a, that's the coefficient in front of x squared. That is the 2. My b, that's our coefficient in front of the x, so our b equals 5. Our c, that is our constant. We have a minus there, so it's a negative 20. So now we're just going to substitute it into the formula. The formula is, or we have it here, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So I start off with the b, and I need to fix my font, sorry. And we're going to have negative, that should have been green, negative b, which is negative parentheses 5. Okay, use parentheses, show substitution. Then this would be parentheses 5 squared minus 4 times a, well, our a, so that would be parentheses 2. And then our c, that would be parentheses negative 20. All over 2a. So that's going to be 2 times our a, sorry about that, 2 times a, which is 2. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. We can do this in the calculator. So go to your calculator, and we're going to do alpha y equals, hit enter to get our fraction box. We're starting off with a negative 5. Now, I know we can't put plus or minus, but we're just going to do one with plus and one with subtraction. So we're going to start off, do the first solution with plus. So with plus, then do second x squared to get our square root symbol, our radical sign. Then we're going to do parentheses, 5, close the parentheses, and square that number. Then we're going to do plus 4. Then we have parentheses, 2, close that parentheses, and then another parentheses, negative 20. Close that parentheses. Then we're going to arrow down, come to the bottom, and then we're going to put 2 parentheses 2. Okay, and we're going to now hit enter. Now, it says that we have a non-real answer. Let me check my... This happens if we have a negative square root. So we should not have a negative square root because, let me see how I typed it. Hold on just a second. Sorry. I see what I did. I don't know if y'all saw it right here. There should have been a minus sign. This would have been a negative square root. It was supposed to be minus 4a. So I'm going to go back up here. Just copy that down. I'm going to change because this is supposed to minus 4ac. Oops, fell over, sorry. Put my sign there. Now enter. There it is. There's our solution. Now, I'm glad we saw the error because you're going to see that on some extra practice. There is a possibility that you can get an error, which means if you type everything incorrectly, I didn't type everything incorrectly. I apologize on that. Then if you get an error or it says no real solution, it means there's no solution. There's no roots. The parabola, the quadratic, does not touch the x-axis. So here, our first solution is x is 2.2. Okay. To get the second solution, I'm going to arrow up one more time. I'm going to hit enter to copy that entry. And now what I'm going to do, arrow to the right, then arrow up, and then I'm going to arrow all the way, because instead of doing the plus, we're now going to do one with subtraction. So we're going to now hit enter, and there is our second solution. This would be round up to negative 4.6. So our answer here would be x equals our two solutions, which was 2.2 and negative 4.7. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is use this formula on some practice problems. Okay, and we're going to talk about some irrational solutions. So we'll do that on 9. So let's start off. What I'm going to probably focus is on the odds and then check your understanding with the even. I'll probably ask some questions on the Edpuzzle with your solutions or pick a multiple choice question that was a solution. So to start off number 7 here, remember the equation has to be equal to 0. It has to be in standard form. So right off, we need to subtract the x to make that become eliminated, and now add 10. And I know I ran out of room here, but that's plus 10 right there. That becomes eliminated. So when I rewrite it into standard form, you would get x squared plus 6x plus 10 equals 0. And then what you want to identify before you put in standard into the quadratic formula is you want to know what your a equals, what your b equals, what your c equals. So if I look here, if there's no number in front of the x squared in front of the variable, then that's an invisible 1. So my a is 1, my b is 6, my c is 10. And now we're plugging it into the formula. The quadratic formula is what we have on this sheet here. So if you want to write it down, you can, or you can go straight to plugging it in. So hold on just a second. All right, so if you go straight to just plugging it in, there it is, okay? And now that you're showing your parentheses and what values you plug in for the parts in the formula, we can go straight to our calculator. So if we go to our calculator, we're going to do alpha y equals, hit enter, and we're going to type in our expression. So we have a negative 6. We're going to do the plus, the first solution with plus. And then we're going to do second x squared to get the radical. And then we had our parentheses, 6, close the parentheses, then square it, then minus 4 parentheses. And the first, our a was 1, close that parentheses. Our c was 10, close that parentheses, all over 2 parentheses 1. 2, or if you want to, you should maybe already know that mentally, so you know it's over 2. And then we're going to hit enter. And this did have a non-real answer. Okay, so non-real answers, so they have to be, like when we do our domain for quadratics, like when we do a basic, and let me get out of here. Say we did a basic quadratic like that, and we graphed it. Remember our parabola, whenever it touches the x-axis, like here, then we have a real solution. And our domain is our real numbers. Now the quadratic that we just did in standard form was, I'll clear this out, was the x squared plus 6x, then plus 10. And if I look at that graph, this right here never touches the x-axis. So when you see the answer that we got on that graph on our calculator, it says error or no non-real solution. That means that this has no solution. Now we could use our symbol, which is the 0 with the line through it, to indicate no solution as well. Okay, so I want you to now try number 8. Again, our first thing is make sure it's in standard form, so it has to be equal to 0. So see if we can get that first step. This is going to require us to subtract 4. And then we're going to also need to add 3x squared. We have like terms here. So hopefully now you see that you have 6x squared minus 5x minus 4, because these canceled over here. And this is equal to 0. So now we can go to your quadratic formula. Now, there is a little chime, a little song that you can use to help you remember it. But this is on your formula chart. Your quadratic formula, the formula we've been working with, this right here is on your formula chart. So you don't have to memorize it. But if you want to get like a little earworm, here you go. So hopefully this little chime here, this little rhyme, so it sounds like Pop Goes the Weasel. Not the hip hop version, but that can help you with that as well. So now these on number 9 here, it says we're gonna have irrational solutions. And basically this means that when we take the square root and get our solution, it's not going to be a perfect square, perfect whole number. You're going to get decimal answers. And so we're going to go through the same steps, okay? We want to identify our parts to the standard form. This started equal to 0. So we want to know what our A equals, what our B equals, what our C equals. Obviously A is 1, B is 4, C is 1. Then we want to go back into formula, back and plug in everything in. So we should have negative parentheses B, which is 4, plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is 4 squared, parentheses 4 squared, minus 4 times A, so it's parentheses 1, times C, that's also 1. Sorry, I ran out of room here. Move that over. This is all over 2A, so 2 parentheses 1. So when we simplify this, you can go back to go straight to your calculator. But if I was to simplify this, so I have a negative 4 plus or minus the square root. This would be 16 minus 4 all over 2. I simplify that. That gives me negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 12. So this is why it's called irrational solutions, because 12, all right, if I do second x squared, this gives me a decimal answer. Anytime I get decimal answers, it's going to be irrational solutions. Basically, a rational number is our decimals that are repeating or non-repeating. This is not a perfect square. Perfect square is when I put in, let's say I did 16, I take the square root, we get an actual perfect whole number. So anytime we have decimals, those are examples of irrational solutions. So that's just your clue for this section here, that we're going to have irrational or decimal answers. So I can go straight to typing in my alpha y equals, our fraction bar, our negative 4. Let's do the plus sign first. Oh, not negative 4, sorry. It was, oh no, it was negative 4. Let's do plus, and then second x squared, our square root, our parentheses 4 squared, minus 4 parentheses, we had 1 and another. Now I know some of you can kind of maybe do all this mentally, and that's fine, but just make sure you check your signs. You don't make sign errors. So when we do the positive answer, we get a negative 0.2679, so we're going to round this to the nearest tenth. So this will be a negative x equals a negative 0.3. Now to get the minus, we got to do one with plus and one with minus here. We did the plus first. I'm just going to go arrow up, copy that entry, arrow to the right, then arrow up, and then arrow to the right, and change that plus sign to a minus, and hit enter. So there's our second solution. Negative 3.73, so that's just going to be a negative 3.7. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I want you to try to complete the remaining problems using the quadratic formula. Make sure it's equal to 0. So on 10, you're good. It's already equal to 0. But 11, you need to do your minus 20. You do have like terms here. Plus x minus 11 equals 0. Here, to make this on 12, to make that negative 2 a 0, you would now make that plus 2. So there's no like term, so you're just rewriting in standard form for x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 0. So got you kind of on the right track. I want you to make sure you can try to get these on the right track, get them set up, and we will go over these and check your answers for 10 through 14 in class. Thanks, guys.